I never thought words could sting harder than betrayal itself, until the day my wife called me a wrong choice. We were at a dinner party hosted by one of her close friends. There were at least a dozen people around the long oak table, soft music playing, wine glasses catching the light. Everyone was laughing, talking, sharing stories about relationships and how they'd found the one. Then someone asked her jokingly if she ever regretted marrying so young. She laughed. Then, without looking at me, she said, "Yeah, maybe I chose a little too quickly. Sometimes the wrong choice can take years to realize." The table went silent for a beat, and then the laughter returned, nervous, forced. I tried to smile. I even nodded, pretending it was just one of those light-hearted moments couples have. But something inside me cracked that night. I looked at her, the woman I had stood beside through everything, the woman who once told me I was her calm in the storm. And I couldn't find even a flicker of warmth in her eyes. After dinner, I offered to drive home. She said she'd go with her friends instead. That drive home alone was the longest 20 minutes of my life. The silence in the car was louder than any fight we'd ever had. When I got home, I sat in the living room, still wearing the same half-smile I'd forced on my face hours ago. The clock ticked loud. My phone stayed quiet. She came home past midnight, perfume mixed with someone else's laughter still clinging to her clothes. I asked her, "Did you mean what you said tonight?" She shrugged. "You're taking it too seriously, Ethan. It was a joke." A joke. That's what she called it. The moment she stripped me of my dignity in front of everyone we knew. But I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "All right." That word, "all right," became my refuge. I used it when I didn't want to break down, when my voice would have trembled if I said more. The following days were mechanical. Breakfast in silence, polite smiles that didn't reach our eyes. She spent more time at work events, and I spent more time trying not to notice. We'd been married 8 years. 8 years of shared rent, shared bills, shared plans for a family that never happened because, as she once said, "Now's not the time." I had believed her. I always believed her, but something shifted after that dinner. She stopped wearing her ring. She started locking her phone. And one evening I came home early to find her sitting in the kitchen with a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, confident, dressed like someone who never had to explain his choices. She looked happy. Genuinely happy. When she saw me, her smile disappeared so fast it left the air heavy. "Ethan, this is Ryan. We work together." He extended his hand. I didn't take it. I just said, "Nice to meet you," and went upstairs. That night she slept in the guest room. The next morning she told me, "You're making things awkward." I wanted to ask for who, but the words didn't come. I realized I was already fighting a battle she'd decided to walk away from long ago. Days passed like that. Then one evening she came to me and said, "Ethan, maybe we should take a break." A break. As if marriages were something you could pause and resume like a movie. I asked, "Is there someone else?" She looked at me for a long time before saying, "Maybe it's not someone else. Maybe it's just not you anymore." That sentence hit like a quiet explosion. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just said, "If that's what you want, I'll make it easy." She packed a bag that night. No tears, no goodbye. The door closed and the sound echoed longer than I expected. For the next few weeks, I lived like a ghost in my own house. Everything smelled like her. The shampoo, the sheets, even the coffee mug she'd always left near the sink. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that she'd realize what we had. But deep down, I knew what had already happened. People don't leave when they stop loving you. They leave when they stop respecting you, and she had stopped a long time ago. A month passed before I heard from her again. No calls, no texts, just a single email. "We should talk. I think it's time to finalize things." She didn't say divorce. She said finalize. Like we were closing a business deal, not a marriage. I stared at that email for hours, rereading it until the words lost meaning. Then I typed back, "Sure, let me know when." When the day came, we met at a quiet cafe near her office. She looked radiant. New haircut, bright lipstick, the kind she hadn't worn in years. I almost didn't recognize her. She spoke first. "Ethan, I didn't mean to hurt you that night, but we both know we haven't been happy for a long time." I nodded slowly. "Maybe, but unhappiness doesn't justify humiliation," she sighed. "You always take things so seriously. That's part of the problem. You feel everything too deeply. That line, "You feel everything too deeply," cut through me like a dull knife. I used to think being sensitive made me weak. Now I realized it's what made me human. I asked her one question. Was it him, Ryan? She looked away. It's complicated, and that was enough. Complicated was just another word for yes. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the ring. I just stood up, left enough cash on the table for both coffees, and said, "Good luck fixing what you broke." She didn't call after that. Neither did I. But that night I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to the old cabin we'd once bought as our escape. It sat by a lake 2 hours from the city, untouched for months. Dust on the windows, silence in the air. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everything was exactly as we'd left it. The faded blankets, the chipped mug with her lipstick stain, the photograph on the mantel of us smiling on the cabin's porch. I stood there staring at it, wondering when we stopped being those people. Then, for the first time, I allowed myself to cry, not for losing her, but for losing the version of me that believed love could fix anything. I stayed there for days. Turned off my phone, cooked, slept, wrote down every thought I'd buried under "all right." That's when I realized something simple, but freeing. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was angry at myself for waiting so long to choose me. The next week she texted, "Can we talk before you make any legal decisions?" I think I might have made a mistake. For a moment my chest tightened. The same old reflex, to forgive, to hope. But then I remembered that dinner table, her laughter, her calling me a wrong choice in front of everyone. So I replied, "You were right that night. You did make the wrong choice. But I'm finally fixing it. No insults. No revenge. Just truth." A few days later, her friend Jenna called me, said my wife had been asking around about whether I was seeing anyone. I wasn't, but I told her, "Tell her I'm doing fine," because I was. I'd started running again, eating better, even sleeping without that constant ache in my chest. I wasn't happy yet, but I was free. A month after the papers were signed, I got an invitation to another dinner party. Same friends, same table. I almost didn't go, but something inside me said I should. Not to prove anything, just to close the loop. When I walked in, she was there. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence had drained from her posture. The room fell quiet for a second, maybe remembering what had happened last time. I smiled politely, nodded to her, and joined another conversation across the table. Later that evening, one of her friends joked, "So Ethan, how's single life treating you?" I said, "It's peaceful. Turns out sometimes the wrong choice teaches you the right kind of silence." She looked at me from across the table, eyes wet, lips pressed tight, but I didn't look away. For the first time, I didn't owe her a reaction. When I left that night, I passed her by the door. She whispered, "You really changed." I smiled. "No, I just stopped apologizing for who I am," and I walked away. The drive home was quiet, but this time the silence felt different. It wasn't heavy, it was healing. Some mistakes can't be fixed. But sometimes you don't need to fix them. You just need to stop carrying them.